What's up YouTube, I'm Guy. Today on the channel we're going to be checking out a really cool watch. It's a style of watch that I have been a big fan of since I've gotten into watches. What we're talking about today is the Oris Rectangular, and the style of watch that it is basically a dress watch, although it could be maybe more of a casual everyday style watch. But more importantly, it's a watch that comes in a square or rectangular form factor. You might have heard my G-Shock square chiming here just now. That's the watch I'm wearing today. And yeah, I love square watches. What can I say?
Before we jump into it, please do me a favor. Pause this video and click the Audible affiliate link in the description below. Audible is the world's largest audiobook library, and if you sign up for a 30-day free trial using my affiliate link, you'll get 2 free audiobook downloads. Listen to your Audible books anytime, anywhere, on just about any device, and if you're a Prime member, you'll get 66% off 3 months of Audible if you decide to keep your subscription. Help me and support the channel by using my affiliate link, and help yourself by getting a no-obligation free trial to Audible. It is a win-win.
Alright guys, here we have it. The Oris Rectangular Date. Now, first things first, there used to be, and again, this watch is no longer in production, but there used to be a whole bunch of different variations of this watch. All of them quite cool. Lots of different complications available. This was probably the most basic, just the simple rectangular with the date complication. And frankly, kind of my favorite. I like the overall simplicity of the watch. Now, before we get into the watch, I do want to take a quick look at the bracelet. This watch obviously does come on a stainless steel bracelet, as we can see here. And I'll tell you a little bit about that before we look at the watch. The bracelet itself is really nicely done. All of a high polish. This might be a little bit much for some of you guys, and I get that. It is flashy. I can see why the person that loaned me this watch decided to put it on a leather strap. This might be, for day-to-day use, again, just a little bit too much, and certainly a scratch magnet. This bracelet is basically mint, though. The clasp itself is kind of a dual butterfly deployant style affair. It's quite nice. It feels very sturdy. Yeah, overall, I do really like it. But I get why you might think that wearing a high-polished bracelet like this all the time wouldn't really work for your day-to-day lifestyle. This is an extremely cool watch. I'm just a fan of, square or rectangular watches in general. What can I say? I like the Cartier tank. I like the JLC Reverso. And by extension, of course, I like this Oris Rectangular Date. The dial is done really well. It has a nice guilloche pattern. Overall, just a really great presentation. The overall dimensions of the case, the domed sapphire crystal, yeah, it's great. I'm getting ahead of myself, though. Let me go over the basic specifications on this watch real quick. First things first, the price point. When this was in production, it was a $1,900 MSRP watch. Of course, you probably could get it at a discount, gray market, or through the authorized dealer. Either way, not a super affordable watch, and yeah, I don't know, given the overall simplicity of it, maybe a little on the expensive side if I'm being honest. But if you can find one of these for, say, $1,000 secondhand or less, which I think might be possible, I would honestly jump on it if this is a style of watch that you're into. The overall dimensions, I think, are absolutely perfect. 30 millimeters in width, so side to side, not including the crown, with a height of 44 millimeters from top to bottom or tip to tip of the case, or what I typically call a watch's wingspan. An overall thickness, even with that aggressive dome or arc in the shape of the case, it's only about 11 millimeters thick on my calipers. And the lug width, where the strap and or bracelet attaches to the case, 22 millimeters. Let me talk about that dimension in particular first. I'm generally not a huge fan of 22 millimeter lug width watches. I think it just tends to make the watch wear a little bigger than I generally prefer. I like 20 millimeter width lug width watches in general. That said, on this watch, because of the overall smaller scale of this watch, the 22 millimeter lug width kind of makes it bulk up a little bit. It brings the wrist presence up to exactly where it needs to be. It was a really good design choice to go with 22 millimeter lug widths on this watch. The rest of the dimensions are awesome, and I'll throw it on the wrist here later on in the review. You'll see that on my 6 3/4 inch wrist, it wears absolutely beautifully. Now, the other basic specs on this watch is pretty simple. I mean, we have a domed sapphire crystal with AR coating on the underside. The AR coating seems to work pretty well, as you can see shining into my bright lights there. Still, relatively legible dial presentation. It doesn't glare out entirely. We have 30 meters of water resistance. For a watch like this, you're never going to want to get it wet anyway. It's a dress watch. It's, not meant to go in the water, but supposedly 30 bar or 30 meters. So it should stand up to, minor splashes and whatnot without much of an issue. The dial is a silver dial, and it has blacked out Arabic numeral markers. We'll take a closer look at the dial because it has a really attractive guilloche pattern, one of the highlights of this watch. Finally, we have a display case back, and in that display case back, we see a teeny tiny little movement. What it is the Oris 561. Effectively, what that is an automatic ETA 2671. 38-hour power reserve, runs at 28,800 vibrations per hour. Overall, it's a good movement. It's, probably a small version of like the ETA 2824 if I had to, make a guess. Automatic winding rotor there, has the hallmark of Oris watches with that red winding rotor. The watch case is all of a high polished and sort of in, I don't know what I might describe as like an Art Deco kind of design or style, with these little sort of bevels or chamfers along the edge of the top flanks of the case. Very nicely done. I like the style. I like the look. I like the aesthetic. Overall, the quality of the case itself, the fit and finish, it is simple, but it is nice. It is, kind of just refined, very classy, classic looking, if you will. On the opposing side of the case, of course, we have the Oris signed crown, if I can get it in some good light there for you guys to see. The crown is not undersized. It's actually fairly appropriately sized. The hand winding action is good. Pulling it out to the first position gives us date quick set. Second position hacks the movement, of course. Lets us set the time as necessary. Actually, I think that the crown is done really well. It's sized appropriately. It visually does look a little big because the watch isn't exactly big, but it doesn't feel oversized. I would not compare it to like maybe, if you're familiar with the Hamilton Khaki Fields, it has a very large oversized crown. This one works. It's good. No real complaints there. The crystal on this is, again, an air-coated, double-domed sapphire crystal. So you don't get any like distortion effect as you look at the dial from an angle. And again, the AR coating, it's quite good. You do obviously, get a little bit of glare like you would with any watch, but I find that a combination of a white or silver dial with AR coating makes a watch face extremely legible, so long as the markers in the handset have an appropriate amount of contrast. The markers and handset on this watch do. They're blacked out. Maybe it's it's difficult to tell. Is it blacked or blued? It's either a very, very dark blue or black. Difficult to tell. But yeah, high contrast, very, very legible, even at this relatively small size. Now, speaking of small sizes, here's a problem with this watch for me. That date is itty-bitty, teeny-tiny, one of the smallest date windows I have ever seen. For all intents and purposes, at least for my eyes, which are unfortunately aging, the date is all but useless under, standard conditions. I just can't read it. It would be nice if they just went with a no date, in my opinion. Other people are going to disagree with me. They're going to say, my eyesight's fine, I can read it. And, I get it. But for me, I have no use for that little teeny tiny date. That is probably the only real sort of shortcoming or I don't know, pitfall of the overall design of this watch for me. The date is absolutely just minuscule, if I'm being perfectly honest. The dial itself, maybe one small little design flaw, and if we look at the 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10 on the right and left sides, the way they're stacked up there doesn't have the same sort of distance between each marker as we find on the 11, 12, 1 and 5, 6, 7 on the bottoms. So maybe there's just a little bit of like a scrunch versus stretch thing going on here that could look slightly awkward if you're really, really into, perfectly spaced out and absolutely symmetrical design philosophy. It's not bad. It's just a little something that I noticed. I don't dislike it enough to where I would say, yeah, I don't want that watch because of it. Just a little tiny thing that I noticed. The handset itself, a sword style hour hand and an elongated sword style minute hand with a very thin needle-like seconds hand. It's nice that they did include a seconds hand. A lot of rectangular or squared watches are no seconds. It's just hour and minutes. I like to be able to hack the time, boom, right there, and then set it, and then start it back up. That's kind of an important feature for me in general on all watches, and I'm glad that it's here on this one. There is lume on the hour and minute hands. It's nothing special. There's not a lot of it, but yeah, it is there if you care. I would say that as far as reading in the dark, that is unimportant to me. The reason why having that lume there is kind of useful is in daylight settings, like, what we're looking at the watch here. It adds contrast to the hour and minutes hand and makes just general day-to-day use and reading of the watch dial a little bit better, in my opinion. I like to have some sort of fill on my handset to break up the hands and, again, make it a little bit more contrasty. It achieves that goal perfectly. So from that perspective, I'm glad that there is the lume there, but from, night or dark reading, whatever, not a big deal. The dial, that is obviously the main event of this watch. We're going to zoom in here a bit more closely. The dial itself is a silver dial with a beautiful guilloche pattern. We have sort of 3 layers. There's the layer with the Arabic numerals. We'll call that the outer layer with that nice serration guilloche pattern. There's even almost a 4th layer at the very edge of the dial where it bevels up with a different pattern. Inside of the Arabic numerals, we have the seconds or minutes track, which is not textured, but we have nice little markers along with graduations for each individual second and or minute. It looks great. Then the internal portion of the dial with kind of a radiant silver sunburst pattern, the Oris automatic branding and our logo, along with that itty-bitty teeny tiny date window. And they even bothered to nicely bevel out that date window here. There's a huge amount of detail given to such a small date complication, but it's well done. In the macro, close up like this, yeah, it actually looks quite good. Overall, I find this dial to be fantastic, just absolutely beautiful. There's another version of this watch with just high polished markers. I find that to be a little less legible, and the owner of this watch asked if I wanted to borrow that one or this one, and I went with this one just because I like the blued or blacked out handset and Arabic hour markers better. I think legibility trumps, the classy sort of style of a totally high polished Arabic marker or numeral, at least for me. Anyway, I digress. The overall look and feel of this dial is fantastic. It's my favorite thing about this watch, and yeah, hopefully you guys can appreciate it as much as I can as well. Alright guys, there it is, the Oris Rectangular, again, 6 3/4 inch wrist size. Very, very appropriate for me. The overall lug-to-lug or wingspan comes in at 44 millimeters, and I love that I have plenty of space on the outer edges of my wrist. It does not begin to even test the overall circumference of my wrist. I think that it looks great, but it doesn't look tiny because the wider 20 millimeter lug width / strap, it does really, really wear excellent. Very, very impressed with it. I love it. I love the size. I love the scale. Yes, if it was on the bracelet, which was entirely high polished, I could see where that might just be a little bit too much flash. But on a leather strap like this strap, which is kind of a chocolatey brown, I don't know, I'm not familiar with this brand. It has a small logo there. RICRIOS maybe? I don't know what that is, but if you want to look it up, that's the strap that it's on. Very nice strap, and yeah, it works great for my wrist. I absolutely love this watch. Alright guys, there we have it. That is my review of the Oris Rectangular. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, a very cool watch. A watch that I am, in fact, super impressed with. I've been thinking about buying a watch similar to this, the Cartier Tank, a square or rectangular form factor wristwatch, for quite a while. The hurdle that I have to overcome with these styles of watches is that they are inherently kind of dressy, and I generally don't wear watches on leather straps or dress watches all that often. I prefer sports watches, more casual, that sort of thing. Now, if I found myself in an environment where I was dressing maybe, I don't know, business professional on a daily basis, I could absolutely see wearing this watch 5 days a week. I think it's fantastic, and again, I'm a very big fan of the overall style and aesthetic of these types of watches. Now here's the issue with this watch in particular. The Oris Rectangular is no longer in production. You go on the Oris website and yeah, it's not there. They don't have it in the catalog anymore. So if you want one of these watches, kind of like I'm thinking about myself, you better hurry up and get one soon. I have a sneaking suspicion that these weren't sold extremely widely, meaning that the inventory on the pre-owned market is probably not very deep. And if you're going to want to find one of these, the longer you wait, the harder it's going to be to find one in the condition that you're probably going to be looking for, which is, near mint or better. Yeah, definitely get out there and search one of these down. I highly recommend it. I think it's a really cool watch, and if it fits with your style, or should I say lifestyle, definitely 2 thumbs up. Alright guys, well that's going to wrap this video up for today. As always, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. Thanks to Jim, my viewer and member of the JustBlueFish Watch Club over on Facebook, for loaning me this watch. I really, really appreciate it, buddy. If the rest of you would like to help me out in any way, shape, or form, down in the description of this video, there's a list of ways that you can do that. First and foremost, follow me on, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, my social media accounts. I would really appreciate that. I also do, like I had mentioned, have a Facebook group, the JustBlueFish Watch Club. We talk about watches over there, and if you want to join up and join in the conversation, click that link, sign up. Make sure you answer the membership questions when you go to sign up. You will not be admitted if you omit the answers to those 3 questions. Now, second, if you'd like to help me out financially, Patreon. You can click my Patreon link, give me a small donation every month. There's a handful of guys over there that have been doing it month after month. I greatly appreciate their generosity, and I would appreciate your generosity as well. Thanks everyone that has been supporting me on Patreon. Again, I greatly appreciate it. Finally, if you'd like to help me out financially, but maybe you don't want to spend or donate money to me, but you do shopping on Amazon, just continue to shop on Amazon. But first, click my affiliate link. If you like something that I've reviewed and you're thinking about buying it, or frankly anything for that matter, click on my Amazon affiliate link first. It'll take you over to the Amazon homepage, and from that point out, whatever you buy, I get a small commission on. Those commissions do add up, and a big thanks to everyone that has been using my Amazon affiliate link. I appreciate it very much. Well, that's going to wrap this video up for today, so I'll sign off and say until the next one, bye now.